Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. My name is Jay Oza, and I'm really excited to be here this evening because I love talking about this topic, and I want to share my ideas, some thoughts that I believe you'll find interesting, but also it might be helpful in your quest to become a better speaker. So the title is Time is Money, Communication is Wealth. Time is money is something we all know. We live by that. But communication is wealth. And that's what this talk is about, and specifically public speaking. But communicating well is extremely important throughout history. And it's becoming more important even now. And I'll tell you, and more important now. With communication, you get power, you get influence, you get respectability, you get gravitas. And that results in wealth. Could be financial, could be political, could be social, could be technical, could be a reputation, could be just about anything. Without communication, you cannot build wealth. You determine what kind of wealth you want to build. It could be all of them. You could be rich. You could have political wealth, financial wealth. You could have all of them. But it all starts with communication. Without communication, you cannot build wealth. So think about that time is money. And I hope that students are being taught today. And I think students are not being taught. They're basically taught. And I think this is the outlook that you need to have, that communication is wealth. So in this talk, before I get too much into, so this talk is about communication in general, but public speaking in specific. That's what this talk is about. And I'm going to focus into the why it's important to become an effective speaker, what makes somebody an effective speaker, and how do you become an effective speaker. And these are all the things that I think about and I do when I give talks. So you're not, and I'm not $100,000 speaker yet. So you're getting from somebody who might be a little bit ahead of you, okay? Who might be a little bit ahead of you or maybe not. Who might be just as good or maybe a little bit ahead of you. So you're not hearing, it's not like me learning golf from Tiger Woods, This is not like that. So I just want to make it clear. You're not learning golf here from Tiger Woods, okay? This is not like you're learning golf from Tiger Woods. I'm better than you, and I'm going to tell you things that I am currently doing and how I plan to improve and what I'm going to do, what I'm doing to get better. That's what this talk's about. So when you see that, like, oh my God, this guy's so, hey, look, if I was making $100,000 a speech, do you think I'd be here? Probably yes. If I was making $100,000 a speech, do you think I would give up my weekend and come here? No. So I'm not making $100,000 a speech. And, hey, if anybody here wants to hire me, I'm available. I'm currently not making $100,000 a speech. But if you have a rich uncle or somebody like that who's got that kind of money, I'm available, okay? But the purpose is, but seriously speaking, you're learning from somebody who is probably a little bit ahead of you, maybe. I'm going to make a guess that I'm slightly ahead of you, okay, a little bit ahead of you, but not by much. And what I'm going to talk about is how I got here and what I'm going to do to get to that next level. So that's what this talk's about, okay? That's what this talk's about. But before I continue, let me thank you for coming. You had a lot of other things you could have done, but you took time to come here, and that means a lot to me. So I want to thank you. Thank you very much for coming. Second, I want to thank Sheila Algawa and the Middletown Library for organizing this event. And this has been planned more than 6 months ago. And lastly, I want to thank the taxpayers of Middletown for supporting this library and having events like this to create a stronger community. I want to start first with a personal story about myself, and then I'm going to talk about communication in general before going to the heart of this talk. So When I got my first job was in 1983. About a month or so into the job, my boss comes to me and says, Jay, I want you to give a engineering status. We rotate giving engineering status report, and we have each team member give that to the leadership team. And what you have to do is go and ask all the other engineers where they are in their project, and you just update the leadership team. So I thought, how hard can that be? So I did that. I put it together. The day of the meeting, my name gets called. I said, now Jay will give the engineering status report. As soon as my name gets called, nothing is coming out of my mouth. I'm completely frozen. And there's just nothing happening. Luckily, my colleague Chris was sitting next to me. He took my engineering status report and he read it. And he gave it to me. And there was a good news out of that and a bad news. And I was like, what happened? I was like, whoa, what happened? I was like, that was like the longest few seconds or minute that I've ever gone through in my life. Like, I am looking at the status report and nothing is coming out of my mouth. I don't know what to do, what to say. I am completely locked out. I'm completely frozen. Not sure if that has ever happened to you. It has happened to me. So it is amazing that I'm here giving this talk. Because if I had to think about that, that was a scary thought experience. I just didn't know I had no idea what I was doing. That scared me. But there was good news and bad news. Good news is I didn't get fired because I was very good technically. I could program their 4040 real-time programming using the 4040 microprocessor. So I was really good at that. So I didn't get fired. The bad news is I was not on a promotion track. My colleague Chris was. So there was good news. I was good technically. I didn't get fired. Bad news was that I was not on a promotion track. And I basically became more and more, I started just focused on technical and avoided giving talks. And then 10 years into the job, I ended up at Bell Labs, and I said, I need to do something else. I've been coding now for 10 years. There's got to be more to work than just writing code. It kind of got boring for me after a while. So I said, let me go and attend a Toastmasters club meeting. And there I saw people getting in front of other people. And you can see that some of these were people who were trying to, they had fear of getting in front of people and speaking, but they were doing it anyway. And the group was very supportive. They would all clap, and the people afterwards would feel really good, like they did it. I said, I got to do this too, because if I don't do this, I'm never going to be doing anything but coding. So I joined Toastmasters Club, and I went through my 10 speeches, and I became a competent Toastmaster. And that gave me confidence that I felt I could now go from technical to a more customer-focused position. So I became a sales consultant, where I worked with the salesman to explain technology to customers. And then eventually I went and took a bigger role where I just directly became a main sales guy, and I worked and talked to the business executives. And then eventually I transitioned into a sales role where I directly talked to business executives, mainly on the partnership side, to drive business. So I realized at that point, and this is happening late, this is not like one thing after another. This is like happening this is taking me 10 years to make these moves. And then eventually I decided that I wanted to pursue this exclusively, so I left corporate. I decided that I wanted to focus on this. So I decided that the only way I could do it was to do it on my, I wanted to give speeches that were not just company related, but much more broader. So I left the corporate world around 2006-07 timeframe and went off on my own doing coaching and stuff like that. And that's what I've been working on now since 2006, 2007, since 2007. But the point I'm making is that because I could now communicate, it gave me much broader opportunities. It opened up opportunities that I don't believe it would have. Now, I went into sales, I went into sales and marketing, but you could remain technical and I could have gone up even on the technical. So I had options. Either I could have risen through on the technical side, become technical lead or technical manager or director, eventually CIO, CTO, whatever, right? But I decided to go more on the sales side. So what it did was, the point is that communication opens up opportunities. Even if you're technical, it will open up opportunities. Keep that in mind. So this is a very important skill. But communication is gotten very complicated. And to explain how complicated it has gotten, I'm going to look at our leaders, political leaders, because America is the right country to look at. Because communication is how you get to the top in politics. Communication is how you get to the top in politics. And how politics has evolved by who was the dominant speaker at that time. Who were the dominant speakers, dominant mode of speaking. So if you look at the founding fathers, they got attention. Who got the attention? And the political leaders that were successful were the ones who got attention. Who got attention and why? If you look at, starting from the beginning, if you look at the founding fathers, they were great writers. We live by their writing today. The Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, Adams, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, John Jay, Alexander Hamilton, you name it. They got attention. They were thinkers and writers. And that was the dominant mode of getting attention. And some of them became presidents. Adams, Jefferson, Madison became presidents. Hamilton could have become president. I don't know if Hamilton could have been. Hamilton could have been a president if he was born here. But these were people who were presidents. They were great writers. Fast forward, then we move to advancement in technology. Suddenly railroads. People could go, suddenly railroads became a mode of transportation. Suddenly the transportation technology advanced. We had railroads. So you could go from town to town, not only from writing, but you can actually deliver speeches, so people got to see you. And the person who really did that well, who really gained fame doing this, was Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was an outstanding speaker. He got attention because of his because the way he spoke, because of his oratory. He got attention so much that he decided, even though he was not the most qualified person, he decided to run for presidency. And because of his prowess in speaking, he was everybody's second choice. And when people's first choice started dropping out, he became everybody's first choice. And he got nominated and then became president, and the rest is history. One thing before I move on, Abraham Lincoln was extremely effective. One-on-one, one to few, and one to many. He knew how to hold an audience, whether he was speaking one-on-one with somebody, one to few, one in a small group, or one to many if he was giving a formal speech. Effective, amazing. Then we move to the radio becoming prominent, and the president who gained attention and thus became a four-time president was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And radio kind of changed because you were not talking loudly to people with gestures. It had to be a very soothing manner. You were having that, it was much more intimate. Radio is much more intimate, and radio still exists today. So everything exists. Writing exists, speaking exists, radio still exists. And FDR basically changed that. You have to get on radio and be able to talk to people like you're talking to individuals. And he was talking about some real serious topic like recession, and he comforted the nation as they were entering the war. All of these heavy-duty topics, he could only have done it through radio. And that's how he got attention, by speaking on radio. We fast forward it. Suddenly television becomes prominent. And the president who really understood this better than anybody was John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy was made for TV. Telegenic, articulate, humorous, had it all. It was a complete package for the television age. So suddenly, it wasn't just good enough. And he was a writer. He wrote a book. He was giving speeches. But now, you have to be telegenic and know how to appeal, know how to craft your response on TV, because you don't get that much time. So suddenly, you needed that other skill. Then came Reagan. Now you had to have stagecraft. You can't just say, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall in that Berlin. He was right there. Backdrop, Berlin Wall, saying, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Stagecraft became extremely important. So now we're getting into the Donald Trump. who's now changed, who's even evolved communication even better. That leaders got to be performers, and also they got to constantly communicate, because there is not going to be anybody intermediate that's going to communicate for you. If you're the leader, you got to get the message out. You got to perform. So he's also changing the way communication is going to work from now on. That anybody who's running for any top office, they're the trendsetters. You've got to be a performer, and at the same time, there's a constant communication that people expect. And that is going to be the reality now. So as you can see, the evolution, nothing has gone away. You still have to be a writer. You know, Trump's got dozens of books. Whether he wrote it or not, it doesn't matter. He's got dozens of books. He goes on radio, goes on TV, he gives rallies, and plus he understands stagecraft, he does performance, he does Twittering. He does it all. And that's his superpower, communication. That's how he became president, in my opinion. That's how he got the attention. It's all about the attention. So that's a kind of a overview of how, and we're going to now get right into the public speaking aspect of it. So that I just wanted to kind of set the trend that public speaking is very important. The other thing I want to point out here is, you might say, well, why? Okay, so let's get, so the question then becomes like, why become an effective speaker? So that's a question. Like, okay, so you're sitting here and saying, okay, you know, I got a good job. Why should I even become an effective speaker? It's because we are becoming less human today. By that I mean less human with the technology. And machines are taking over a lot of the things that we're good at, that we become good at. Machines are going to take over. They are going to take over. So we're becoming less human, but in order to differentiate ourselves, we're going to have to become more human. You know, it's kind of hard to understand that in one sense we're becoming less human because machines are essentially do a lot of the stuff we're doing. So you don't need to interact with people. But in order to be valuable, you have to become more human. I know it's kind of odd, right? And to become more human, the best way to do it still is speaking. One-on-one, one to few, one to many. So with technology, we're becoming less human. Sometimes, I mean, you just look at it, everywhere, human beings are essentially getting replaced. But there are certain things the machines are not going to be able to. So we have to figure out, where do we really could survive and thrive in anything? Where do we? So if you look at the service economy, people today want customer experience. The only way customer experience can be delivered, not one of the ways customer experience can be delivered is how human you are. Like when I go get my hair cut, I don't have a lot of hair to cut, but the thing that I really value is the time that I spend talking to the barber. That makes that barber more human. Do you understand? So, give you an example. I do have to get a haircut once in a while. And when I have to get a haircut, I really look forward to it because, hello? So how do you become an effective speaker? Why become an effective speaker? Technology has a lot to do with this. In one sense, we're becoming less human. We don't need to interact with people. But in another sense, we do need to become more human to differentiate ourselves. So I'll give you a case in point. Like I go to a barber. Now the value of a barber is not to cut hair. That's given. That's a table stakes. But the value of a barber in many senses, not just cut hair, is his or her ability to have a conversation. That's a value that barber adds nowadays, right? That's the value the barber adds. So we have to become more human. So the antidote to technology is to become more human. And there's no better way to become more human is the ability to talk, speak, one-on-one, one to few, one to many. You got to connect. You got to engage. You got to be able to influence, persuade. That's what it's all about. So let's just go, so why? And it's the economy. That's what the economy is doing. We're moving essentially from we moved from agricultural to industrial through knowledge. And I believe now, if you think about it, with all the ways people can get to you, we're living in an attention economy. Whoever gets attention wins in anything. Attention is all it's all about. People have to get attention. How do you get attention? Attention is like a currency. It's a currency. Whoever gets your attention wins in anything. We got, like, if you look on the Democratic side, there are a lot of candidates running. They're all good. They're all pretty good. But who gets the attention is the one who's usually coming out ahead. Attention is what it's all about. I can't tell a difference between Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, all of them. They all could be viable, but the one who gets attention usually wins. So attention is how you win today in anything, whether it's in business, whether it's in entertainment, whether it's in anything. Attention, like all movies, before they come out, you got to get that attention, the buzz, that first release has to be there, because if that's not good, it's over. Attention, it's all about attention. But still, the most effective way to get people's undivided attention is speaking. So as you can see, you're here listening to me. At some point, you're going to be here talking, and I'll be listening. That means you got responsibility. You have to really, really work on this, because this is the best way today. This is the only way. This is one of the best ways to get the attention, because people's attentions are short, except when they're in front of, especially you can capture their attention and keep it. That's a real skill that we need to develop and master. And if we do that, we're going to build wealth. Wealth, whatever wealth you consider as wealth, you're going to build it. Could be, as we said, social, could be political, could be technical, reputation. You're going to develop wealth. So that's what we're going to talk. So let's just kind of talk about the guy who kind of pioneered this. And the reason that's Lee Iacocca. He was the CEO of Chrysler. And he's the first person that I remember, based on that I can remember when I started thinking about it, he was on TV. And now he's a CEO, right? He's a CEO. And CEOs generally stayed in their office, ivory tower, and strategized and made sure everything was executed. But not Lee Iacocca. He did commercials. He got into our living rooms. He got into our family rooms, living rooms, bedrooms. He got into our living rooms. He got into our house where we were watching TV, and kept on telling us about all the wonderful things Chrysler was doing. They're building this, they got this engine, that engine, all kinds of stuff. And then he would end with his trademark phrase, if you can find a better car, buy it. And people after a while, what happened was they were spending money on advertisement. But then he got more free publicity because he was a CEO, chief communication, chief PR officer. He wasn't just a CEO. He essentially was the chief PR officer. And people started noticing that, hey, if this CEO believes in his product, at least I should go check it out. And people did. And Chrysler certainly started doing well, such that, because remember, they had gotten bailout from the government under Jimmy Carter's administration. And because of Lee Iacocca pushing the product and getting people to come to the dealership, they were able to repay the government loans 7 years before they were expected to. And that is strictly getting attention. He got attention. He got people, I'm sure everybody at one time had either your parents or yourself had a K car or minivan. That's because of Lee Iacocca. He was the one who got us to go and check it out. This guy, that's Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett is like 89, but he's on TV a lot. He's on TV a lot. He is the face of Berkshire Hathaway. He's constantly communicating. Gets that attention. He's 89 and he's still getting attention. He still gets attention. He's out there getting attention for his public. I think we all hope that we can get 89, can be 89. I hope I'm 89 and can come and give a presentation like this. That would be another 40 years from now. I'm 57, so it would be another 40 years from now. I don't know. 40 years from now, I would like to come and give this presentation. And hopefully by that time, you'll all be a little bit older. You'll all be here. And that's what he's doing. And, he said something interesting. He said one easy way to become worth 50% more than you are now, at least, is to hone your communication skills. And as I pointed out, how communication skills allowed me, it opened up opportunities. And that's what it does. And he's absolutely right about that. I mean, I gave you my personal example. So this is a skill that is extremely valuable. But attention also comes in the entertainment field. So that's Arnold Schwarzenegger. And if Arnold Schwarzenegger was an actor, and he's known for his two famous phrases, I'll be back and hasta la vista, baby. That got him pretty much, because of those two famous phrases, two trademark phrases to being a two-term governor. Two trademark phrases to two-term governor. That's amazing. Because he was not an actor. He had never run for any political office. But he had these two trademark phrases. And he was well known. He got attention. And he got attention. And he became a two-term governor of California. Okay, that's like probably the most important state in this country. Probably the most important state in this country. Arnold. So who could top that? Of course, Donald Trump. He had one trademark phrase to presidency: you're fired. Next thing, people hired him to be the president of the United States. So if you see the evolution, the natural thing is you're going to get the next president, somebody who doesn't even have any phrase. From selfies to the future president said, who is going to bet against that? Nobody gets as much attention as Kim Kardashian. And Kim Kardashian here, as you can see, I wouldn't bet against her. As you can see, she's speaking at the White House. I'm here speaking in the Middletown Library. So who am I to say, wait a second, Kim Kardashian, who am I to laugh at this? I think she's well positioned to become the next president. You heard it here first, okay? Okay, so the point of that was that speaking gives you attention. And attention is what it's all about. That's why you need to become an effective speaker. Otherwise, you're not going to get attention. And if you don't get attention, you don't build wealth. Simple as that. Okay, so now let's get to the next one. What makes one an effective speaker? Okay, there are 5 things that I basically looked at it and I said there are 5 things it comes down to. These are the 5 things that make one an effective speaker. You are the message. Number 1. The most important. The audience, the objective, the performance, and then the practice. So let's get through the first one. When you or anybody gets in front of a stage, everything becomes you. You are the message. The way you present, the message that you convey, the way you convey the message, it's all tied into one, you. You are the message. And this is something that Roger Ailes wrote about in his book titled, You Are the Message. And I completely agree. You are the one who is the writer, the screenplay, the actor, the performer. It's all you. So just to give you an example, when you are giving a speech, So for example, when an actor is acting, the actor is not the message. The message is the message, right? He's just taken the message from a screenplay and he's acting it out. And they're so good at it that we think that that actor is real. That's how good they are. We think like, wow, he is real. But he's not. He's just an actor. That's not the case when you're speaking. You can't act somebody's message. It has to be your message. Do you see the distinction here? Actor is not the message because that's acting. That's not him. When I'm speaking, it's me. I may not be a good actor, but I have to be the message. I am the message. So always remember that when you get in front of the people, are you the message? Because if you're not the message, you're losing the audience right from the get-go. You lose the audience right from the get-go, right from the beginning. Audience are too smart because if they're giving you that undivided attention, they better know, I believe what this guy is saying because he's living it. He's breathing it. This is him. This is his message. He is the message. And that means that everything you do becomes the message. It's not one thing that's the message. So it's everything integrated gets you the message. Your reputation, everything. So when you get on the stage, that is the message. This is very important because a lot of people think like, oh, well, I better be, they say you better be yourself, but you want to be careful. Better be yourself in the sense that you do not want to be different. And if you're a little weird, then it's okay. Weird doesn't make you bad, just makes you weird. But be that. You want to be, the message has to be you. You have to convey that message in everything you do. Otherwise, people are just simply not going to believe you. Otherwise, they don't know, the people are going to get confused. Does he really believe that? They're going to say, do you think he really believes what he's saying? You don't want that to happen. So that's the important thing. You got to know who you are and you got to deliver that message. There has to be that consistency in the passion, the way you say it, and what you're actually saying. It's you. That's you. And that's what we look for. When we look for people like leaders, people gravitate towards Oprah because she is the message. She doesn't leave any doubt whether that's really Oprah or not. We feel like if we met Oprah, she wouldn't be any different from the way she is on television. That's who she is. That's why she's so popular. People feel the same thing about Michelle Obama. We feel that the way Michelle Obama is, when you see her on TV, and if you like Bill Clinton and all these people, they are really the message. So then you get to audience. So I want you to be clear because a lot of times people think like, oh, the audience is the most important. No, it's you. Without you, there is no speech. The audience comes next. Audience is important. But here's the thing. Everybody in the audience is not the audience. And also sometimes the people that are audience are not the audience. People that are attending are not your audience. That's why I have a videotape. My audience may not be here. Maybe somebody who's going to view this when I put it on YouTube may be my real audience. There could be audience of none, one, few, or many, right? The audience can be anybody. Attendees are not audience necessarily. They're attendees. Audience are people that are resonating. These are the people that resonates. These are the people who are getting what you're saying. That's the audience. And everybody's not going to get it. So you want to be careful. That's one, few, or many. And typically, if you want your speech to be really successful, get the audience that already believes in everything you say. So here's a trick. When people pay you money to give speeches, that's because they know the audience that's going to resonate with your speech. In a way, they're willing to pay you because they want you to come in and just deliver that speech because they already know the audience that your speech is going to work with. That's the thing. That's why people get hundreds of thousands of dollars past presidents can go in and get because everybody knows the president. So when you start making money, that means your speech is becoming really specific to a niche audience. That's when people pay you money to give speeches. The third thing is the objective. So now you're the message, you know the audience, could be one, could be few, could be many. In this one, I have to take a guess who the audience is, right? For this audience, I have to take a guess that these are people who are probably good at speaking one-on-one, might have given a speech here and there, might have given speech occasionally, but would like to do it kind of consistently, would like to get better at it. That's how I have to guess that this is my audience. If all of you have been giving speeches, I don't think you would attend this. So I have to make a guess. Most of you are very comfortable speaking one-on-one. Most of you could give an informative speech, but you want to get better at it. Most of you could give a speech, but you want to get better at it. You'd like to get better at it. That's the audience that I'm guessing is coming to this. Then we get to the objective. Objective comes down to is what you want the audience to know, how do you want them to think, what do you want them to feel, and what do you want them to do. So it is in that order. So first I have to share some content. Then I have to make you think about that content by telling you some story or personal example. That has to then create some kind of feeling like, maybe I should do this. I think, how can I do this? I want to do this. There's got to be a feeling. Maybe I should do this. I think I can do this, but how do I do it? So I'm taking you from knowing to thinking, if I could do this, maybe I could do it. It would create opportunities for me. I think I'm getting it. I think I'm getting it. I think I'm feeling it now. I'm feeling it. I want to do it. And that's how I'm trying to get you to, that's how I'm trying to get you to think. And that's how I construct it. That's how the objective is. Fourth is performance. And today, we go by performance. Speaking is not about content dumping. It's about performance. People don't care about content. Content is all out there. People want performance. If you get somebody in front of you and an interview, they're going to perform. So I coach executives, and I tell them that when you go for an interview, right? In fact, what I prepare them to do is I said, do not do it. Go there and give a speech. Go there and give a 30-minute speech. And I prepare them for that. And I said, that 30 speech is your performance because you're not there to get a job. You're there to do the job. You're not there to get the job. You're there to do the job. And once I tell them that, they get it, saying, yeah. Because if they're hiring to be an executive, don't say, I can be an executive. Be an executive. Think, act, and speak like an executive. And if you do that, you walk away with an executive level job. That's how it works. That's how it works. Give you a perfect example of performance, how performance can move the needle or it doesn't. Just recently we had Robert Mueller he was asked to come and testify, but he didn't want to perform. He just wanted to be there, and that's it. He wanted his document, the Mueller report, do the talking for him. Great document, I read it, fine. But that's a 448-page document. If that was turned into a screenplay, there could be several movies that could be made from that. That's what movies do. He did not perform. And when you don't perform, it's a null event. It doesn't move anything. It's a null event. Nothing moves. It actually could hurt you if there's no performance. People think like, that was a waste of time. And that's a kiss of death. You never want people to say that was a waste of time. Performance is truth. Okay? Performance is truth today. And that's one of the reasons, that's something that Donald Trump knows better than anybody. Performance is truth. The thing is, the fifth thing is practice. And just so every time I bring up Donald Trump, I don't mean it in a political sense because I want to be careful here because people think like, this guy must be I'm not trying to push you towards Trump or vote against him. I'm kind of neutral on this. I'm not either way. The reason I'm using Donald Trump political figures is not to push any political. It's just these are examples that we all see. So when I use Trump, I'm not trying to be a Trump supporter or anything like that. I'm just using it because that's the example that we all see, and he is the president of the United States. So this is not meant to be like, oh, he's using Trump. That's it. I'm done with it. It's not like that. I'm just kind of pointing things out based on what I'm observing. The last thing is practice, practice, practice. Now, this is the key. When you get in front of people, and the rule is 99-1. Now, that's a little extreme, but that's what it takes to be a real great speaker. 99% of it is practice, and 1% is the actual speech. 1%. So if it's 100 hours, you practice 99 hours, and only 1 hour is the actual speech. If you've done that, you are well prepared. You practiced hard. Practiced hard. I mean, this one, I'll talk about practice. I'm not going to go deep into practice, but there are so many things you can do. And once you start doing it, you'll know exactly what you need to work on. But it goes without saying that you cannot get in front of people unless you practice. And I practice all the time. So to give you an example, I have my smartphone, I have my audio recorder. When I'm in the car, when I'm driving, I'll turn it on and I'll record. And I'll listen to it. How does it sound? How do I sound? And that's what I do to keep improving. And this is a skill nobody ever masters, because every audience you're going to be in front of, unless you've got the same audience all the time, then you may not have to improve. But when you're speaking, the audience is going to be different. Just like a baseball player, when he goes out, he wants to get a hit or a home run, because the people that are come to see him are all going to be different ballparks. That famous line by Joe DiMaggio, right? So how do you become an effective speaker? And this is something where I want to kind of focus on several things. So up to this point, we've gone over why. You got to get attention, right? Attention is currency. What you have to do, you are the message. You've got to know your audience. You've got to know your objective, what you want them to know, think, feel, and do. Performance is critical, because that's what people are focusing on, what the performance is. Because people don't have a lot of attention. It's all about performance. And then you got to practice all of that and put it together. Now you're ready. So how do you become that? So that's what this is about. Before I go into that, I want to focus on something important here, because you probably have heard about this, but when you're speaking, there are three senses: visual, vocal, and words. There are three things that come into play. Visual is what you're seeing, vocal is what you're hearing, and the words is what you're processing. So there are all these, is the words that's keeping it together. It's the words that's keeping the speech together, right? It creates the flow of the speech. Okay, so how do you understand that? And why is it that visual is so important? And there's some controversy, but I believe it. I do believe this is true. Visual is essentially the most important. Vocal is next, and words is there. Does that mean that you can just show up without saying anything? No. You can come up and say nonsense, and no. So what exactly is it? So to understand that, the best way to explain it, that I try to explain it, is to take a look at a sports car that looks great. But a sports car, by looking at it, is a showroom. It's a model car. It doesn't move. It sits in a showroom. If you take it out on the parking lot and turn on the engine, suddenly the sports car is not just looks good, but it sounds good. It sounds like a sports car. Not only looks like a sports car, but it sounds like a sports car. But that sports car can look like a sports car and sound like a sports car, isn't going to move unless it's got gas. So your gas is your words. Your engine is your vocal. And the body is the visual. But when a car is moving past us, we don't say, wow, that car is using 89% octane or 93% octane. That never occurs to us. It's all about, did you see that car? Nobody says, did you hear that car? Did you see the gas that, the exhaust that came out of the, we don't say that. We always say, did you see that car? We don't say, did you hear that car? Or did you see the gas vapors came out of that car? Nobody says that. Vapors that came out of that car. This doesn't happen. And that's exactly what happens with the speaker. It's all visual, but it's all integrated. The speech doesn't work if the words are not flowing. My speech would come to an end if I just went on a loop saying the same thing over and over again. Though it may look good, though it may sound good, but the speech is dead. It doesn't do anything. So be very careful that visual is that important. Vocal is next, and words, though it's 7%, it keeps the flow, but the processing is just done the other way. Without words, the speech is dead. Without vocal, you sound kind of robotic. And without visual, you don't look like you're really excited to be here. So keep that in mind, that that's how people process the speech. The way you're processing me is just like that. The way the way I can't just move in a weird way, right? It has to be consistent with the speech. And the person who kind of is a good example to use, if you remember in the 70s or 70s, right? 80s, 70s or 80s, there used to be that appliance store called Crazy Eddie. And there was a guy who did those commercials. His name was Jerry Carroll. And he would be waving wildly, oh, our prices are so low. Look at this appliance. Look at this cassette recorder, video cassette. And then he would end up, Crazy Eddie, our prices are insane, something like that, right? He would say that, insane. He would emphasize that A. So if you're watching it, you're like, wait a second, why is this guy acting insane? Why is he sounding insane? And why is he saying that his prices are insane? If he sounds insane, it's using the word insane. He's not using the word insane. He looks insane. He sounds insane. And he's saying his prices are insane. There's a consistency about insanity here, to the point where you're going to say, I need to check out this store. And when you check out, you find out what's insane is that they want to sell you their insurance. They don't care about, they're more interested in selling their insurance more than the product. They want to get a service contract. They want to sell their insurance on their product. That's how they made their money. So how do you make your speech interesting? Less is more. With this speech, the exception of this speech. This speech is the opposite. More is more. This speech, so here's the one thing that I'm going to say. Don't do what I'm doing. Okay? This is one thing is don't do what I'm doing. Less is really more. But since this is more like I'm kind of viewing this as a kind of like a teaching, this is more like a meta speech. So here more is more, right? But typically if you were giving speech and they bounded you and saying you're going to come in and give a talk for a half hour, less is more. Less is more, right? This speech, I'm trying something different. This speech is not the right speech. If I wanted to come in, if I really understood the audience, I knew the audience, then I would follow that. Less is more. With this speech being an exception, this one is not less is more. More is more. Okay, this is not less is more. So this speech may not be a good example of it. This speech may not be a good example of it. But if you're giving a speech, less is more. Because what I'm doing is I'm kind of giving a talk and doing it. This is more like a meta speech talk. So that's why less is more is not applicable here. But here you want to talk about your experience. Talk about your experience, your personal experience. That resonates because that's you. Nobody can argue against that, argue with that. Second, you can talk about experience of people you know. And the third thing, you can talk about books and movies, right? So I'll give you a simple example, each one of them. So I want to talk about my personal experience. So I just gave a talk recently about a career topic, and I talked about packaging. And I said, you know how packaging is so powerful that it doesn't make you think. And that's what packaging is about. That if you're well packaged, then the person doesn't have to think. And I gave an example about tomatoes. That one time I had to get a tomato, and I saran wrapped tomatoes, 4 nicely saran wrapped tomatoes, and I picked it up. I've been picking it up, but this time I just looked at the price, and I realized that these tomatoes were $3.49. And then there are tomatoes next to it, were stock, were on stock, they were $1.49 a pound. And I said, there's no difference here. I don't know. Maybe these are top-notch tomatoes. They look right. They look like a tomato. So I said, let me go with the cheaper one. I said, I'm going to go with the cheaper one. I packed it up, brought it home. Wife loved it. She didn't have any problem with it. She didn't say, since it's not saran wrap, I'm not using it. I packed it. I gave it to her. She used it. She said, no problem. And that's when it occurred. How many times I bought those expensive tomatoes and they were no different than the other tomatoes that were a lot cheaper. And that's when I realized the importance of packaging. So that was my way of illustrating the point that you got to be packaged when you're looking for a job. Second is the experience of people you know. So in this case, my son, he was working this summer and he was working at the swim and tennis club and he got fired. The last day of his job, which is kind of sad. Last day of his job, he gets fired. And he got fired because he didn't let the boss know that he couldn't show up because he couldn't show up on that one day and he wanted to show up. He got fired on Thursday and he would say, I can't come on Thursday, but I can come on Friday. And the boss said, no, you're done. Okay, so he got fired. And he was pretty sad. And I said, wow. And I said, you learned a very valuable lesson. You have to be responsible when you take on a job, whether it's a volunteer or paid job, you got to take it seriously. You got to take it seriously. And I said, you learn more from this job by getting fired than you would have. I said, the good news is you're not going to get a reference. The bad news is you're not going to get a good reference. You're not going to get a reference from your boss now. The good news is you learn a very valuable lesson here, that getting fired means you got to take your job seriously. Once you take on a job, doesn't matter whether you get paid less, more, anything. You got to do a great job. You got to be responsible. So we'll see if you learn from this. Experience of people. This is the third thing. Now, as you can see, you're getting farther away. Movies. Take something from a movie that people likely are familiar with. Godfather is usually a great movie, right? So I did that last year when I gave a talk here about signal and noise. Signal and noise. That at some point there's signal and noise and there's that inflection point. And I gave a business example. Then I said to drive the point home, you always turn to Godfather, one of the Godfather movies, the first two Godfather movies. There's something in it that you can use. And I used the example of a time when Michael Corleone had gone to Cuba to make a real estate deal with Hyman Roth. And along the way, he sees this rebel who's being arrested. They're arresting these rebels. And instead of this rebel being captured alive, he takes out a grenade, and he detonates it, and he takes out a captain. So at the party, he makes that observation to Hyman Roth. And he says that, I saw something interesting. The rebel didn't want to be taken alive. And that a rebel is not getting paid, whereas the policemen are getting paid. And he's willing to die for the cause. And Hyman Roth's getting worried now. I said, so Michael, what does that tell you? And he said, they can win. So he's getting that as a signal. Hyman Roth sees that as a noise. That this has been going on in Cuba for a long time. So he's at an inflection point. Does he invest or not invest? Michael made this decision not to invest, which was the right decision. The good news is he decided not to invest. Unfortunately, the bad news for Michael Corleone was he got pulled into Godfather Part 3. But the good news was he did not invest in this movie. He did not invest. And good news was he didn't lose. He did not invest. The bad news was he got pulled into Godfather Part 3. So the good news was he did not invest, lose his money. But the bad news was for him, he got pulled into Godfather Part 3. So you want to be very careful with humor here. Humor is very deadly. I always say that you're a speaker, not a comedian, right? So be careful of humor. Everybody thinks that somehow when they get in front of people, they need to be funny. No, you don't. You don't need to be funny. Just be a speaker. If you're advertising this as a comedy act, then be funny. But if it's not, be a speaker. Okay? That's it. And the reason for that is that you're going to trample over your message. And that's a no-no. You do not want to trample over your message. Because if you trample over your message, you achieve nothing. Your objective of know, think, feel, do is completely gone. So these are some of the simple practices to become an effective speaker. I'm not going to go through all of them. So let's just pick out selected few. The best way to do it is, the thing I do is this: record your ideas and thoughts. That's the best way, because you don't need anybody to practice that. That's it. The one thing I want to point out about communication is this is one skill that you don't need to go to Ivy League school. This is a skill you don't need to go get a fancy certificate. This is a doing skill, and we do it. We just need to do it better. So we do communicate, right? We do communicate. So one thing I want to point out is that communication is, in one sense, one of the easiest skills to learn, because you don't need to go to college. You don't need an Ivy League degree. You don't need any kind of certificate. You don't even need a lot of coaching either. It's something you can do it yourself. And this is the thing. I've given you everything here to do it. You can record your ideas and thoughts, listen to it, keep doing it. Another thing is you can always converse with people, become a better conversationalist. Start with small talk, go to mid talk, go to big talk. So I'll give you an example. So let's say I meet somebody here and I said, I talk about this library. That's contextual. That would be a small talk because we essentially are in the same place. So we know the same things that we are experiencing. That makes it a small talk, contextual. But then I can just say, what do you think of the Yankees? Do you think Yankees? Wow, I hope this could be the year. You know, it's amazing that the Yankees look good this year. You know, you could just segue into mid-talk. You could talk about the New York Yankees. They're going to be in the playoffs, and they have a good shot. So you think the Yankees are going to win the World Series? That's mid-talk, because somebody living here may be a Yankees fan. Most likely you can take a risk. Could be a Yankees fan. And then the person starts talking about the Yankees. Now you want to get into big talk. There's like a cadence here, right? That, you know, one of the things about baseball that is interesting is the use of analytics. The Moneyball has completely revolutionized baseball. So look what you've done now. You just met the person, contextual. You suddenly took a risk and said, let me just bring up a topic that the person might know. Nothing controversial. You didn't bring into religion or politics or anything. Baseball. How could it be more simpler than baseball? Once the person starts talking about baseball, you can move into a big talk, Moneyball, because that's now connected to baseball. So this is how conversations work. This is how you test whether any of these topics you're going to resonate. Because if you can take something Moneyball and explain it to this person you're talking to and he's like understanding it, then you now know how to give a talk with a lot of people. I'm going to skip over I want to go with this incremental versus heroic. What does that mean? This is a hard skill. Nobody becomes a heroic speaker. It takes a lot of skill. So focus on incremental improvement, not on giving a heroic speech. There are no heroic speakers. They might be advertised as heroic, but there's no heroic speaking. It's incremental. But incremental doesn't get people excited. Like, oh, I don't want to be an incremental speaker. I want to be a heroic speaker. It's like me buying golf tips, golf books, videos from these like Tiger Woods. When Tiger Woods was good. When Tiger Woods was young, he put out a book. I bought it. Greg Norman's book, I bought it. Jack Nicklaus' book, I bought it. I didn't improve at all. I couldn't even break 100. So I didn't win Masters. Not even Masters. Not that I didn't even win Masters. I can't even break 100. So focus on incremental. Incremental is what you want, not heroic. Because heroic is what we all want. But what's going to get us What you really want to do is incremental. And people think that they could be a heroic speaker. Someday you will be. I don't know. Another last thing is take risks. Public speaking is risk taking. When you get in front of people, you're taking a risk. Playing it safe is fine, but you got to take some risks. You've got to be willing to push the envelope somehow. Not big risks, like take risks, like some examples or something. You've got to take some risks. Try something that, by risk means you're taking yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone. Because when you get in front of people, it's risk taking. You're putting yourself out there. So you're already taking a risk. But then the content and the way it's going to take some risks. You got to try different things to see what's working. And that means that you got to be taking some risks. And if you can do that, then not only are you going to be taking risks in your life, but also at work. So speaking is like a metaphor that if you can take a risk speaking, you're going to come across more, you're going to be more impressive. And that's how people who communicate tend to build wealth. They're taking risks. Okay. So this is kind of interesting. There's the incremental path to success, right? So part of my idea is to get you motivated. No think, feel gap. There's the action gap, and then there's the achievement gap. I can't do anything about the achievement gap. I can't even do much about the action gap. When you're hearing a speech, the only one I can focus on is this no think, feel gap. So what that means is, this is sort of something I created, is I know this topic. I know how to think about this topic, and I know how I feel about this topic. That's me. I need to convey that same thing to you. If that happens, then you know what you say? I get it. It's called resonate. That's called resonate. So if there's a gap that comes in, now you might know already a lot of this stuff. You already might be thinking about stuff, and you might even be feeling. But if I elevate it close to where I am, so if I'm here and you're here, and boom, at the end of the speech, they see the markers going slowly up. Slowly it's going up. Ding! There's a line here. As soon as it goes ding, that's it. You resonate. Okay? I don't know if that's how it happens, but just giving you an example. So you're like ding, resonate. That means you resonate. Okay? At that point, you resonate. And that's how it is. Okay, that's how it is. Once it resonates, I did my job. I did my job. Then I get to try to do is, so the no feel gap has been closed. Ding. Once the bell rings, boom. Now I got to try to get you to take action. And that gap is what you do afterwards to close it. I wouldn't know when it's ringing. Okay, so at some point you'll do some of the action that we talked about in the previous slide. And then you're going to start having achievement, right? So I just wanted to make it clear, because people are saying, like, how do I do it? So here's something you can do for the action, how to reduce the action gap. Take the 30-day challenge. I did it. And what you do is record a 3-minute video on any topic you want and do it for 30 days. I mean, sounds difficult, right? But it's not, right? How long does it take to record a 3-minute? Hi, this is Jay Oza. I'm here at the Middletown Library giving a talk on titled Time is Money, Communication is Wealth. And in this short video, I want to talk about that if you want to become a good speaker, you just got to get in front of people and talk. Otherwise, you can't test out your material. So anyway, I didn't record it, but I'm just saying that you can just do that and then just put it on YouTube. Just put it on YouTube. That's how it works. Sounds simple. You all do it. You all take selfies. Instead of selfies, just hit the record. Instead of taking selfies, just hit record and say something. And you can just draft something on the plane. You can write a quick outline and just say, let me just talk about this. Now here's the thing. In the beginning, you're not going to like it. Do it 3 takes and then get into a habit. And once you do that, if you do this for 30 days, you've just reduced that action gap. And now you're going to start moving into the next one, achievement gap. So keep this in mind. So I'm going to help you get to that next level. So I've actually drafted this letter that I'm going to send it to you. Well, of course, the first paragraph is thanking her for inviting me to speak, but it's the second one I want to read. So I was motivated by the talk such that I'm interested in giving a talk at the library. Would you be open to look at a proposal of a talk I have in mind that I believe will serve the community? That's the one, right? I already drafted this for you. You already have the email. Send it. Get on the calendar. That's it. Get on the calendar. There's Michael right here. He'll be available. Michael, you'll be available to do a video, right? Michael is there. He'll be available to do the video. And I'm just telling you exactly what I have done. How many times do you ever get that when somebody's giving a talk? I've given you the letter, given you the, Michael is right there. Invite me to come. I'll be here. I'll be in the audience. I'll cheer you. I'll cheer you. Done. How many of you are going to, and I know you're all going to do it, so, but give me a head, I know you're all going to do it, so give me an advance notice, okay? So I can put in my calendar. So I'm going to close this out now, this talk, and I'm going to close it out by just giving you two simple rules, and then I'll just close out with some final thoughts. You know, I've given you a lot of information here, and you sometimes think like, oh my God, this is so difficult. It's like mind-boggling. What do I focus on? Focus on just two things. Be excited to be giving a talk. Okay, be excited. Be excited. This is the thing, that no matter what, be excited to be talking. Be excited, because you get undivided attention. That's amazing. That's an honor that people are listening to you. They're giving away their time. And remember, time is money. They may not be paying you, but they're paying you indirectly. Time is money. And today, you know, every time I get a car repaired, the guy charges me more than $100 per hour. So you are essentially paying me indirectly $100 an hour. Okay, when I get my car serviced, it's $100 an hour that people are paying me. So I would say that is like the norm, right? Norm. So $100 an hour. Let's say you're billable at $100 an hour. So I got, even though I didn't get $100, but with your time, you gave me 100, you gave me 100, you gave me 100, you gave me 100. That's a lot of money indirectly you just gave me. Just gave me, right? That's amazing. Time is money. But communication is wealth. The second thing is be clear. At the end, no matter what, they better understand what this whole talk was about. Clarity is the most important. There is no point in giving a talk if there's no clarity. Clarity is very important. So last thing that I want to leave you is, this is a skill that doesn't require fancy degrees, doesn't require anything. You just have to do it. Do it, do it, do it. And you know, today people say that you have to be a good listener, right? Listener. People say like, oh, but you're not a good listener. We always hear that. You know, people just don't listen today. How many times you heard that people say? And one of the things, the last final thing I want to say before I open it up for Q&A is that what drives me crazy when people say, you know, these young people today are just not good listeners, right? And young people say, you know, these old people are just not good listeners. And that drives me crazy, because I'm kind of getting a little older now. And I keep hearing that from younger people. You know, Dad, you're not a good listener. And I'm like, wait a second. So I used to think like, oh, only if I had another extra ear. But that's not going to happen. So I'm like, okay, I'm just not a good listener. But then I realized the burden is really not on the listener. The burden is on the talker. You have to make people listen, want to listen. And I want to thank you all, because you are outstanding listeners. I hope my talk helped in some ways, but the burden is on the talker. And I hope this talk kind of convinced you that talking is very important. Listening is only important if you're a good talker. The listening, in football, the offense gets to decide how the play gets run, not the defense. Defense doesn't hike the ball. It's the offense that hikes the ball. Offense controls which direction. Defense just reacts. Think about that. When you're listening, you are defense. I'm the offense. I have to make sure that you are listening. The burden is on me to make sure. I want to thank you all for listening. Not only you're a good listener, but you are a good marathon listener. So today, if somebody asks you, what did you accomplish? Tell them I got a certificate that I can sit through a talk for 1 hour and listen. I don't have an 8-second attention span. I got more than an hour attention span. How about that? How about that? Thank you all for coming, and I'll open it up for Q&A now.